Hello everybody, welcome to Totally Tabled. My name is Shaggy, and today I'm running down my top 10 coziest solo board games. What makes a game cozy? Well, for me, many factors apply. Soothing art is important, a relaxing theme is an absolute must. There's no cozy games about World War II, right? But most important, a cozy game needs to have low stakes, both thematically and mechanically. That's actually pretty rare because, as a general rule, most board games try to pack as much tension and conflict into each decision as possible. That's why I prefer board games to strategy video games. But sometimes I just want to have a relaxing, casual session, and that's when I turn to these games. Okay, enough preamble, let's get started. Number 10 is Café. In Café, players draft cards and then lay them out, forming a map of icons that you can use to take actions. In the game, you represent a coffee company producing coffee to sell to cafes. And it's a 4-step process. You have to form these plantations, and then you dry and roast the beans, and then finally you distribute your coffee to the different stores. The solo game is a beat your high score style, which I personally find to be way cozier than having sort of a win-loss condition. That's actually going to be a common theme on this list. I also think card drafting is a very cozy mechanism. It's one of my favorites, but here it feels very low stakes. You have 4 cards that you get to pick one from, and then the other 3 get discarded, and then you get 4 more cards to choose from. And it always feels like you have a bunch of good choices. I never feel the stress of not being able to get what I want in this particular game. I also find this sort of step-by-step process of making the coffee just to be really satisfying and easy to wrap my head around. This is a wonderful card game that has really flown under the radar, I feel. I've made a full solo playthrough, so you can go check that one out if you haven't heard of this game. But I highly recommend it. That's my number 10, Café. Number 9 is Lands of Galzyr. This is another one where I've made a full solo playthrough, so you can go check that out. But this game is an open world adventure game where it really focuses on the story. You're going to be making decisions that change the world, not just for this one game, but also for your future games. But everything is very easygoing, it's simple and relaxing. You just go around, you have encounters, you read these fairly long, entertaining stories about what's happening, make a few choices, and you're really just trying to complete quests in order to gain fame. The artwork is just so colorful and pleasant with all these cute animal folk characters. Most of the stories are pretty light and fun, although it can sometimes get a bit dark. And although I do prefer to play this game with 2 players, the solo is still really fun and a great cozy time when I just feel like experiencing an adventure story. And also for a game like this, it's relatively easy to set up and play a session and then put it back away, which means it's easy to get to the table, which is important for a cozy game. So there you go, that's my number 9, Lands of Galzyr. Number 8 is Cascadia. Cascadia is a family-weight drafting and tile-laying game that celebrates the environment and wildlife of the Pacific Northwest region of the United States. Each turn you draft a terrain tile and an animal token from the same column and place them into your growing map. You're basically attempting to create these large regions of the same terrain type, but also place animals in certain configurations in order to score points. Each animal scores in a different way depending on which cards you have, which can change from game to game. Cascadia shares some similarities with Café, because you have both drafting and tile laying, and there's just something so relaxing about that, especially when you don't have many restrictions on how you lay your tiles. The fact that you can pretty much put anything anywhere means not only can you just play this very casually, but also as the game goes along, you have more and more good choices that you can make. I never feel a lot of stress about making sure I get a particular tile or a particular animal token. And it's just such a calming exercise to build out your map, especially when it's one of these nature themes, which are easily the coziest of all the themes. I love how this one is very simple and straightforward, and yet there's enough thinkiness to keep you engaged. And in the end, it's just about trying to beat your high score, so again, the stakes are nice and low. So there we go, that's my number 8, Cascadia. Number 7 is Conservas. Conservas is a solo-only bag-building game where you run a tinning company off the coast of Spain. You'll be sending out your fleet of ships, catching fish, and then selling your tinned delicacies, trying to meet your monthly monetary goals, but you must do so sustainably, because if you overfish, you'll lose the game. The fishing itself involves drawing tokens from the ocean bag and carefully deciding what to keep and what to throw back into the sea, which will breed and create more fish. On the face of it, this kind of seems like a stressful game. You either win or lose, and the pressure of making enough money in a short period of time seems like it should be tense. But for some reason, I find the game super relaxing. The theme obviously helps evoke this sort of sleepy fishing village vibe, and drawing tokens out of a bag is so satisfying. This won't be the last game on the list with that mechanism. I've made a playthrough of this one. I'm going to stop saying that because I've made a playthrough of most of these games, but definitely go check that out. You can look in the description below for links. But that's number 7, Conservas. Number 6 is Cartographers Heroes. Cartographers Heroes is a flip and write game where you play as a mapmaker charting out a fantasy landscape. And the coolest part of the game is that you actually get to physically draw out the map. This must be one of the most thematic games around. You are literally doing what the theme is. And really, what could be more cozy than sketching out mountains and rivers and villages using colored pencils to craft your own unique realm? If you have any sort of artistic skill at all, you definitely want to try this game out. But if you're like me and you lack all artistic skill, it's still a wonderfully relaxing activity. The game itself is a compelling tile laying game where you're drawing out the tiles instead of placing them. This is yet another tile laying game, so clearly there's something about this mechanism that I find especially cozy. But it's really so simple. There's just a card drawn. You pick which tile you want to fill in and where you want to put it. And you're just trying to satisfy these 4 different scoring conditions, which are going to score throughout the game. I think a lot of flip and write games could qualify as being, very cozy games. But for me, this one is the coziest. So that's my number 6, Cartographers Heroes. Number 5 is For Northwood. For Northwood is a quick solo-only trick-taking card game. And this might be a more personal pick than most because trick-taking has always been very relaxing for me. It goes back to college where my friends and I would take breaks during long study sessions by playing various trick-taking games with a normal deck of cards. Things like Oh Hell. So now every trick-taking game just feels like taking a break. I can understand that for some people, For Northwood might actually feel a little stressful because, you're attempting to win exact numbers of tricks by strategically using this growing pool of special abilities that you have. A trick in this game works by randomly flipping over the top card of the deck, and then you get to play a card from your hand. So, you have to follow suit if you can, otherwise you can trump in. Fairly basic, normal trick-taking stuff there. But before each trick, you have the choice to use one of your special ability cards. And those will do things like let you trade cards out of your hand or switch what the trump suit is and things like that. It works surprisingly well, and it creates this wonderfully puzzly experience. And honestly, I think the cute, almost childish artwork is contributing to its cozy feel for me. And on a side note, this is my go-to travel game. It's literally just a little deck of cards. There you go, For Northwood, my number 5. Number 4 is Black Forest. This is the newest game on the list. In fact, I just did a complete solo playthrough on the channel. Please go check that out. Black Forest is a re-implementation of Glass Road. a resource management tableau building game that uses these ingenious resource wheels. You'll be collecting basic resources by placing workers out into different villages on the map and taking the actions on tiles on either side of your pawn. You track these basic goods on the wheels, and once you have at least one of each of the goods, the wheel turns and creates an advanced good. In the case of this game, you're creating glass, provisions, and commodities. And you use these to take additional actions as well as to construct buildings. Once again, this is a beat your high score kind of a game, but more than that, it's a really sandboxy game. You have dozens of buildings to choose from, each with unique abilities or rewards, and there's really nothing stopping you from pursuing whatever strategy you want. It gives it a really smooth playing, casual feel. This is easily the most cozy, proper medium weight Euro game that I've played. So there you go, Black Forest, my number 4. Number 3 is At the Gates of Loyang. Yes, back-to-back Rosenberg games. I've said this before, but At the Gates of Loyang simply doesn't feel like any other farming strategy game. You really have to play it to understand, or perhaps you could watch my full solo playthrough. Check the links in the description. But what makes it so unique is that your turns feel so free-flowing. You have a long list of actions, and apart from just one of them, you can do them as many times as you want and in any order. And I think that's what makes this game feel so cozy to me. You'll be buying and selling vegetables, trading with market stalls, using helpers' special abilities, planting and harvesting fields, and ultimately trying to fulfill short and long-term contracts for money. But you can really just do all those things until, you run out of vegetables. And then at the end of the round, you get to use your money in order to purchase victory points using a very clever mechanism. At the end of the game, like a lot of these games, it's simply you're trying to beat your high score, which again turns the pressure way down. And the theme of, growing and selling pumpkins and leeks, it's just so perfect. I've been turning to this game for over a decade when I need a comfort food game, and it's never let me down. That's why it's my number 3, At the Gates of Loyang. Number 2 is Dorfromantik. Dorfromantik is a cozy tile-laying game based on the cozy video game. And yes, another tile-laying game. I swear, I didn't realize that there were this many tile-laying games on this list until right now. But in this one, you are really focused on creating these regions of a certain size. You're going to always have these 3 objective tiles on the map, which will have a terrain type and a number. Once the size of the region equals that number, you score the number and then draw another objective tile. And you just keep doing that, trying to complete as many of these objectives as possible. It works so well because once a region has grown to a certain size, you need to move on to another region in order to complete your objectives. There are very, very few placement rules or restrictions, which helps to make this game feel like one of the coziest tile-laying games I've ever played. And the cute and colorful artwork reinforces that feeling. This is about as stress-free as a board game can possibly get. That's why it's my number 2, Dorfromantik. And my number 1 is Coffee Roaster. Coffee Roaster is a solo-only bag builder about making the perfect cup of coffee. This has been my go-to cozy game for nearly a decade. Whether it's a lazy afternoon or a late night unwind session, Coffee Roaster hits the table again and again. What could possibly be more relaxing than the theme of making a perfect cup of coffee? Add on to that the most charming artwork imaginable and its perfection. The gameplay involves pulling tokens out of a bag, manipulating them using abilities, discarding bad tokens, roasting the token beans to higher numbers, and then putting them back into the bag. You keep doing that round after round, trying to tune your bag so that when you move to the coffee brewing phase, you can pull just the right tokens out of the bag. As I mentioned before, I find this activity of pulling tokens out of the bag to be just so satisfying and even meditative, especially since I have the tokens in these coin capsules, which makes the tactile experience 10 times more satisfying. You can check out my top 10 board game accessories video for more information on these capsules. And watch my full playthrough of Coffee Roasters to see it in action. For me, it's easily the coziest solo game I've played. That's my number 1 coffee roaster. And there you go, my top 10 coziest solo board games. What games did I miss? Please let me know in the comments. I know one game that comes to mind that's mentioned often is A Gentle Rain. I've unfortunately not had a chance to play that one yet, but that gets recommended a lot. Are there any others? I would love to hear about them. And if you like this video, please think about subscribing to the channel. Check out some of my other videos. It would mean a whole lot to me. But until next time, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.